Welcome back to the Charter Podcast, brought to you by St. Xavier University. Ruthie Polinsky, 𝗦𝗡𝗍 𝗂𝗏 back with you after the weekend of the 2025 Bears rookie minicamp. I was out there on Friday and Saturday. Clay and Alex were both out there all 3 days of the weekend. God bless you both. It was gorgeous weather, which was kind of fun to kind of be out there. It was so fun to, I think, just watch football again, right? Like, that's obviously always fun. And there were so many things that we can take away from it, including what we learned about the coaching staff, I think was another sort of underrated storyline going into the weekend of, during the season, during the NFL season, for people who may not understand, the media doesn't get to watch full practices. Like, we just get a certain portion of stretching, mostly, maybe individual drills, like maybe one-on-ones, but like that's really just like training camp. Training camp, we get to watch everything, but there are portions of practice during the regular season that are closed off to the media. So it's been a while since we've gotten to watch a full practice, which we got to do not only with new players that, the majority of them we've never seen before. Of course, there are a couple of guys, practice squad guys who were out there, but it was also really cool to watch the coaches coach, because this is a brand new staff, very few holdovers on the staff as well. So we're going to dive into all of it today. Alex and Clay are here to unpack their brains and empty their notebooks with you all. Let's start with just sort of, where do you want to start, Alex? What's sort of your main takeaway from the weekend?
Well, I know we're going to go through player by player and talk about a lot of guys. I am so glad you mentioned the coaches, because that is exactly where I wanted to start. That was one of my major takeaways. Let's be honest, practice, they're going through basic stuff. They're doing individual drills. They're not doing any like situational football. They're not doing third downs. This is basic practice stuff. So not a ton you can glean. There are definitely takeaways that we had. But my main thing was the style of practice, the feel of Bears practice is much different from what we have had over the past 3 seasons with Matt Eberflus. One, I will say the pace of practice was actually down. Now, part of that could just be it's rookie minicamp, and they don't want to overwhelm these guys with so much at such a high pace. Like, yeah, you want to throw a lot at these guys, but you don't want them drowning, right? I forget who said it. Maybe Dennis Allen. These guys are drinking from a fire hose right now. You definitely want to turn the fire hose on. You don't want them to drown. So the pace was down. Matt Eberflus definitely ran high-paced, high-energy practices. They did a lot. They packed a lot into a short amount of time. That said, I think the intensity of practice was dialed up thanks to those coaches. These coaches are loud. Eric Bieniemy, you could hear damn near every word that guy was saying to the running backs. I could tell you exactly what running back drills were being run because he was yelling, eyes up, keep your eyes up, don't look at your feet as they're going over the pads. When they're accepting, handoffs from the quarterbacks, he's saying, trust him to do his job, you do your job, keep your eyes up. So we heard a lot of that. It wasn't just him. Kyle Devan, assistant offensive line coach, another dude who I thought was very loud. He and Roshar were definitely working great together on the offensive line. And then just, direct criticism that we heard. We saw the accountability firsthand. We saw the, here's what you did wrong, here's what you need to improve. And then good job, great, good job, great. So intensity, volume from these coaches was dialed up, even though it was maybe a little bit of a slower pace of practice.
No, I think that's really good, Alex. And that's something I noticed too. And obviously you're talking about some rookies here, so it's tough because a lot of them haven't had any time to really pick up a playbook, know what's going on. So there's a lot more of drill work, I would say. You're seeing more drills, routes on air, obviously pass sets versus bags. You're not lining up against each other a lot. So there's a lot of that. And the different styles of coaching were definitely interesting. And you started it off perfectly. I mean, the way the running backs are being coached by Eric Bieniemy, it's going to be great. And I think he's going to get a lot out of that room. He's had a lot of success in this league. And I think even hearing Kyle Monangai talk, he is open, receptive to that coaching, and he's excited about it. And he knows that this guy has done it before. He's been a running back. He's been in your shoes. Yeah, he's going to be a little bit loud sometimes, but that's the kind of coaching that is going to get the most out of you. So I know there's been a lot of stuff going viral about Eric Bieniemy this week, but I'm completely fine with his coaching style. Dan Roushar is Dan Roushar. He's a guy, he looks older, a little unassuming, but no, he's going to let you know if you mess something up. I've seen him redo plays on several different occasions when the guys didn't get the technique right. Maybe they're throwing a little flipper in there with the forearm on a double team. He wants you to use your hands, just making sure they're going through the correct steps, go back, run it again. It was tough to see Ben a lot, and I think Ben was kind of letting his generals, his coaches do the work for him, and he was kind of just assessing as a whole. We saw him spending a lot more time looking at even the defense than he was sometimes on the offense, which was interesting. But that was definitely a takeaway, Alex, just the different coaching styles we saw. And I think we're going to keep, obviously seeing that more and more as the offseason goes on.
It is
That's a good
worth.
call.
Sorry. I was just going to say,
yeah.
I was just going to say, Alex, like there's an important part of this is that where we stand during practice is directly in front of Eric Bieniemy and Dan Roushar. So we really had a front row seat to those guys. And the first day we were on the other side of the field, and I watched the beginning of some of the defensive drills, and I loved watching, kind of to the same tune of all this, Jeremy Garrett, who's the D-line coach and is going to have a big voice and has a good relationship with the players, you can tell, on the younger side of the staff, I would say. So there's a really nice, interesting variety of guys that are on this staff. And like you said, I think the coaching, and you would think, we said this on the Big Pro Football Show, Clay, but you would think that Eric Bieniemy was getting Saquon Barkley ready for the Super Bowl the way he was coaching up those guys. Like the vast majority of the players that were out there this weekend will not make this team, let alone any team, right? So there are so many people out there that they're being treated the same way that DeAndre Swift is going to get treated when he reports to practice. So I'm glad we talked about this, because that was really something that even Ben Johnson emphasized. This is, player orientation, but it's kind of coach's orientation too. And I think Ben has sort of set the tone of, hey, this is how I want the intensity level to be on and off the field. And I think the coaches are really matching that. And you get a sense that it's just a really dynamic, energetic, passionate, vibrant, really enthusiastic coaching staff that I think has this team, kind of feels like everything's clicking right now, which we know it's, May, but it does feel like the excitement just continues to build around this team. And I think the coaching staff is fueling that. 100%. Alex, I cut you off, Alex. What were you going to say?
Okay. We were each cutting each other off, and that was great, Ruthie. Just to kind of put an emphasis on what Clay was saying about Ben Johnson, it was unlike past years, whereas it's pretty easy to find guys on the field. There were stretches throughout the weekend where I was like, "Where's Ben Johnson? Where's Ben Johnson?" And you would have to look for him. That's how good of a job he was doing at hanging back, blending in. I think you're absolutely right. I think he was kind of letting his position coaches take that lead. Ruthie, you're absolutely right when he said this is a coaching orientation, letting them, get their hands on these guys, because in phase one, the position coaches really can't interact with the players on the grass. So letting them get their hands on them, let them get to work. And there was a time where it took me like 5 minutes to find Ben Johnson on the field, which is crazy when you're talking about the head coach, but he was just hanging out in the back, taking it all in, having that bird's eye view of everything.
He's also quite unassuming looking. Like he's just sort of like, he could be a math teacher, like he doesn't really necessarily always look like this hard-nosed, tough football coach, former player. He's like sort of like, you'd see him at the grocery store, So I think that's also part of it too. He just sort of blends in, which I think is so cool. And I really do believe that was part of his mission in assembling the staff, and sort of collecting all of these different experience levels, personalities, because he wants, he doesn't want to just be him. He wants to have a lot of different voices and a lot of different levels of experience and expertise and all those things. So definitely one of the more exciting portions of rookie minicamp was getting to watch the coaches coach. Let's talk a little bit about the players. I will go out on a limb here, fellas, and say the headline of the weekend when we're looking at the rookies, okay, correct me if I'm wrong here, but was the headline of the weekend Azie Trapillo?
I think it is in a sense that he worked primarily out of a left tackle stance. Every single time I looked over to Azie Trapillo, he was working at that left tackle stance. Now, does that mean he took some right tackle sets and I did not see it because I was watching the wide receivers or the running backs? Definitely possible. But when 75 was out there, I was trying to look, and I mean, it was left tackle, left tackle, left tackle. So that is notable, right? Does that mean they are not going to work him at right tackle at any point throughout the summer? Of course not. This is the very, very beginning. And again, the coaches are trying to see how much these guys can absorb, how much they can take from the classroom to the grass, and just kind of getting an overall evaluation. This is a guy who played left tackle a little bit earlier in his college career, then moved to right. Hey, do you still got it? Can you still play it like you did, whatever it was, his sophomore year at Boston College? So that was something that he was working primarily on the left side. I'll let Clay break down what he saw in actually the technique type stuff. But the other thing that stood out, I mean, he is really big. We knew he was a big guy, and you seem to be like, that's a big guy. He wasn't the only big guy, too. I mean, there were other big offensive linemen that made me go, oh, is this kind of a thing that they're kind of going for these big dudes, even though a lot of these tackles, as you said, are not going to make the team. There were a lot of big guys out there that kind of made me go, ooh, it kind of feels like there's a type or a frame that they want to see, that they want to go with. But yeah, Azie, definitely noticeable, honestly, for the frame alone, big guy.
Yeah, Azie was definitely, up close and personal. You see how big the guy is and how nice of a guy he seems like in the press conference. But watching him on the field, I've played with some big guys. I played with King Dunlap, who was 6'10", played with Nate Solder, who was 6'7", 6'8", Sebastian Vollmer in New England. There's been guys, and those guys were great. But sometimes you see some of these backup tackles, linemen, the really big guys, and they're a little bit clunky in what they do. They're a little bit maybe slow to get their feet in the ground, and they can't bend at the bending at the waist, not at the knees, because they're such a big person. I didn't see that when I watched Azie Trapillo. To me, he was a guy that was athletic. His technique looked great. He always had one foot in the ground. He had really good bend, hand placement. His strikes were really good. And just seeing his athleticism and agility going side to side for his size was impressive. His sets look great. Look, he did play left tackle, but sometimes maybe your set's not going to be as smooth on the left as it is the right because you're used to something. And every player probably has a preference. And I talked about this. Like, I preferred catching a ball with my right hand up, and I would always work a little bit extra on catching a ball with my left hand up just because it wasn't as natural to me. It's just something you had to work on a little bit more just to be as confident in that. Azie looked really good in his sets from the left-handed side. He looked always like he had really good balance. For a big guy, that's something that worried me coming in, but looking at him, getting the chance to see him on the field. And obviously, we're in shorts and T-shirts out here and a helmet. So this isn't end-all, be-all here. Let's see how he does when Montez Sweat's rushing him. Dayo Odengbo is rushing him. But from what I saw, this guy is more athletic than I thought. He has really good bend. He has a good strike, and he's quicker back and forth than I was thinking he would be for a guy his size. So all in all, watching him for the first time, I was very impressed. Obviously, shorts and T-shirts. You don't play football in shorts and T-shirts, Alex. You play baseball in your T-shirts, okay? You don't play football. Football, you have to have pads. So we got to see him with pads. We're not going to get carried away. Yes, this is probably going to be a competition. I'm not going to say he's the favorite. I'm not going to say somebody else is the favorite, but this guy is athletic. He can move. He can bend. He has all the right things you want to see in shorts and a T-shirt from a tackle.
I think one of the things we learned about Azie this weekend, too, just in talking to him, was that he really wanted to emphasize to us and to probably all of the personnel and coaches that he met leading up to the draft process that he was spending a lot of time, although he was playing right tackle in college, he was spending a lot of time getting reps on the left side to help his draft stock, to increase his versatility, because he understood, hey, I want to play in the NFL. In order to play in the NFL, I need to be versatile in order to go wherever it may fit me. And also, I think he probably, and his coaches in college, understood that he had the size to be a left tackle in the NFL. So I think there's something to take away from just sort of the work that he's done. Although we haven't seen it necessarily on game film, he's done a lot of work to be ready to play left tackle if need be. So I think that's maybe, Clay, why some people were surprised to see him look so good there and athletic there this past weekend. Also wanted to ask you, Clay, because we did ask Ben Johnson this, or someone asked Ben Johnson this about Ozzie's body type and how tall he is and long he is, but does he need to put on weight to be able to compete at the NFL level? What's your take, obviously, having played with a lot of NFL guys that have been that tall?
Yeah, it depends on how he does against the bull rush, but with his length and watching his film in college, he did a good job. And this is obviously ACC. We're playing against Boston College, is still a big time college, not playing against. And Alex made the great fine, just saying, like, listen, this guy went against 𝗵𝗍 𝗍𝗂 in practice every day, and this is an NFL guy that should have been a first-round pick, was a second-round pick, Dallas Cowboys. So I think, he could put on 10 pounds, but to me, watching his film, he's not a guy that struggled a lot with the bull rush. And I know that's the thing that Braxton Jones has to work on. He needs to gain some weight, needs to get that anchor, because the bull rush is really the one glaring thing when we watch Braxton Jones that we say this guy can get better at. He's an athletic guy. He can get out, he can pull, he can do all those things, but the bull rush. So for Ozzy, I think his size and length really helps him, and the way that he can bend for a guy that big was impressive, because a lot of times these defensive ends, they will look at the tackle that they're going against. They watch film just like the offensive. They don't watch as much film as us. They're not as smart as us offensive players, but they still watch film. If they see Ozzy, they're going to say, okay, this guy's 6'8". I'm going to try to get underneath him, long arm him back to the quarterback. So that'll be interesting to see. But everything I saw on the field and watching his tape is, I don't think that's going to be a big problem for this guy, just because his technique is so good. And the other thing I want to say about Ozzy, and obviously talking to his college coach, 𝗵𝗍 is this guy is a worker. He is going to work on his technique. He's a guy that is a growth mindset guy. Get better. He needs to improve. He keeps talking about it. He needs to get better. He's going to get better. And this is a guy that's going to keep working. I love his personality in that sense. The players that I've seen that have had success, from even you drafted first, second, third round, the guys that have that mindset. And he's a guy that you can obviously see that he's hungry to get better. He's hungry to learn. And with Dan Rochar as his offensive line coach, I'm really excited to see where this thing can go for him.
Ben Johnson also talked about Ozzy's football IQ, which is something we've been hearing about, from his assistants, from other people around the league, from Bill O'Brien, who I spoke with. We had him on 670 The Score when I was filling in a couple weeks ago. So just this guy's ability to learn a playbook, retain the information, study. Clay, obviously you know a lot about this, but that I think is something that's just going to set him ahead from the get-go. If he's able, because guess what? This is a new playbook for everyone. So not just the rookies, it almost sort of feels like they're all sort of at the same, starting from the same start line. We'll just see who gets to the finish line first come training camp. So really good stuff there. Let's talk another thing. Alex, I know there was a lot of hype and excitement to see what Luther Burden looked like on the field. And a little bit of a scare, took a tumble at the end of practice on Saturday, but he was out there practicing again on Sunday. So hopefully nothing too concerning. They wouldn't really comment on it, obviously, but yeah, good to see him back out there on Sunday. What were your takeaways from him? Obviously, probably primarily before he got hurt.
Yeah. So thought he looked really smooth, running without the football. The ball did not find him too much, to be quite honest. during 7-on-7 drills or whatever, what have you, the ball was actually finding John Jackson. Yes.
Let me just say one thing there. Let's just remember that it's Austin Reed and another, let's remind our listeners that these are not NFL starting quarterbacks that are throwing him the ball. Continue.
And that's gonna be a great point in a moment. That's gonna be a great point in the moment. I thought he looked really smooth with his releases, with his route running. Honestly, reminded me of looking at DJ Moore. We've watched a lot of DJ Moore. I thought it looked kind of similar. The one target, he had two really good catches. The first one was a ball near the ground. It was his one target. He went down. He got it because it was not a good throw. I asked him about it, and he kind of shrugged. He was like, "Yeah, I made that catch. It'll be the first of many. Looking forward to making more catches like that." And then, as you mentioned, he probably made the best catch of the entire weekend. Ran a really good skinny post, deep ball. It was there. He caught it. Big play, right? It was the biggest pass of the entire weekend. Not that there were like tons of deep passes, but as you mentioned, it looked like he fell on the ball and he was shaken up. I mean, it took him a while to get up. He was talking with the trainers, hunched over for a long time, and that was like right at the end of practice. So Declan Doyle was scheduled to talk. It wasn't Ben Johnson. He's like, "I'll let Ben talk about it." Didn't get clearance or didn't get clarity on that. Sunday, he was out there. I will say it looked like he was going half speed, and I don't know if it's a situation. We don't know. So pure speculation. Don't know if it's a situation where trainers are like, get out there, do whatever you can do, take the mental reps, do not push it. It is May 11th. Who cares? May 11th, this is not important. It is more important for you to be healthy. So we have no idea if he's actually injured. We have no idea the severity of anything, but he was back out there Sunday, going a little half speed.
Yeah, I think that, besides obviously the injury stuff, going in, my takeaway from Luther Burden was, I wanted to see how he runs routes because you've heard a little bit of chatter. Is this guy just a run after the catch guy that you have to get in these quick throws? Will he be able to run routes, get off a press? Is he quick twitch? And he's all that and more. This guy can run routes. I love his burst off the line. He has that burst. He's quick in and out of breaks. He's got great route technique. He's looking forward. He's able to pump his arms in and out of breaks. Like some of the nuances in route running, and obviously, like I said, shorts and t-shirts, routes via air, and we did obviously see him go. They're playing some 7-on-7 there as well, but thought he was explosive. He was crisp at the top. He made impressive breaks. He's one of those guys that it's either you have it or you don't, when you can basically run a route and you can break off of 1 foot, instead of chopping it up. And he's a guy that is super explosive, can break off of 1 foot, can break down and get in and out of breaks. Hands look smooth. Routes versus air, very soft, natural hands. Okay, you can tell right away. I don't care what you're doing, routes on air or if you're playing. Does this guy have natural catching ability? Guy has natural soft hands. He's catching pinkies together, which is basically an underhand catch, overhands. He's doing every type of catch, and it looks smooth. When he transitions after the catch, very quick, catches the ball, gets right upfield. That's why you're able to see him have so much run after catch, because he's so quick in transitioning from that catch to that run. That's something I always look at. And then when we got to see him on the field against defenders, even when he wasn't getting the ball, loved his routes. He's physical. He's getting off a press. He's running downfield. And that play that Alex said, you have a man-to-man, you have a split safety look. He takes the middle, catches a deep ball, tracks the ball over his shoulder, makes a nice play. Obviously, there's a lot more to be done. He's playing against some tryout guys. He's playing against some UDFAs. Obviously, you got Zay Frasier out there, too, who we're going to talk about shortly. Had a couple nice plays in his own right. But Luther Burden impressed me, the way he moved, the way he ran routes, the way he caught the football, everything you're expecting from a second-round draft pick. I was really pleased to see how he could move. Obviously, we know how he can do with the ball, but without the ball, with the routes and everything there, the way he caught it, everything really checked out.
How about his press conference? This guy's intense, all business. certainly has a chip on his shoulder, as we sort of have seen from a lot of media and availabilities, and just talking to some of his former coaches as well. But talking about, all the people that passed on him, he's going to make them pay. There's a personality there. There's sort of a dog in him, which is the word that, Ben Johnson's used to describe him. So I think it's going to be a fun player to watch sort of grow and develop in this offense for sure. STP, something to prove. Okay, Alex, who else stood out to you?
Clay brought him up, so yeah, why don't we go to Zay Frasier? Was really interested to see what he looked like because, again, a traits guy. We heard so much about the speed and the length. One thing that I noticed immediately, this is a guy who could probably put on a little weight, and was asked about that and said, they haven't said anything yet, but we'll see. I would not be surprised if the Bears ask him to gain a little weight, a little smaller guy. That's neither here nor there. That was literally first thing I saw. But then we saw some of the press man stuff. We saw and heard him communicating with his DBs on, motions and, he's there, I'm taking this guy, so we saw a little bit of the communication. We have no idea whether he communicated things properly. I don't know what the calls were, if he got the communication, but he's trying to sort things out with his teammates vocally, loudly. And then there was one PBU that Dennis Allen actually shouted out along the sideline. He's lined up against John Jackson, who really probably caught the most balls out of anybody at rookie minicamp. John Jackson, Caleb Williams' BFF from USC, where he pressed man. He said, basically, John Jackson had a good release on me, but I stabbed him and I didn't panic. And he was like, that was the key. As long as I didn't panic and I was okay, I trusted my technique, I was able to make the play, and he did. He made a nice PBU. But the one thing that impressed me the most about Zay Frasier actually came from his press conference when he was talking about basically taking leadership and taking it upon himself to organize the DBs in the hotel and get a little study session together. And he said it was important for me to step up as a leader in that moment because, listen, first day of practice was hard. We learned a lot, and we didn't want to make those same mistakes. We didn't want to have to relearn everything. So we got together, we crunched, we studied so that we could have a better day of practice today, and that is exactly what happened. We had a better day of practice today, and he thought that study session was important. He was like, listen, leave no man behind. We don't want any of us to fail. So I was really impressed that, he got that group together to have that study session so that they could learn, absorb more, and attack day 2 of rookie minicamp a little bit better.
Yeah, I think that you look at the Bears guys that they drafted. I think they drafted not only some solid players, but some just hard workers. You got Ozzy talking about putting in that extra work. Obviously, Zay Frasier, Luther Burden, Kyle Monangai, all these press conferences we saw, these guys are bought in. They are ready to work, and they're willing to do whatever is asked of them. And that's what you want to see from a young guy coming in there. Zay Frasier, on the field, I thought you could see the guy's athletic. He's long, he's athletic, he can run, he can press, he can get his hands on you at the line of scrimmage. And that play that Dennis Allen was referring to, yeah, he kind of got beat a little bit. The offensive player was behind him, but he's got some makeup speed and he's got some makeup size. Those are the players going back to my day. Back in my day, I'm that grandpa telling war stories right now, but those are guys you don't like to play against. You get a nice release on him. You think, okay, I beat this guy. The ball's coming my way. Next thing you know, this guy's got that recovery speed. He's got that recovery length. So he's going to have a little bit more room to work with, a little bit, a little bit more of a margin for error than some of these other cornerbacks, just from his size, his speed, his athleticism, his change of direction. So everything on field I thought looked great. You said it, Alex. I don't know if I could see this guy coming up and making a big time hit right now, taking on a run. He's going to have to go low because he is really thin. He's slender. But, obviously got to see how he plays with the pads on because I have seen some guys, Asante Samuel. I go back to Philly. He was a small dude, but he could hit. He could tackle. He wasn't a guy afraid of contact. Great cover corner. But Zay, if he wants to be a full service cornerback. And in the way Dennis Allen plays his defense, you're going to have to come up and run for us at some point. So that's one thing that you have to look for. But for what we did see in rookie minicamp, I thought he had a solid 3 days. And you could see his athleticism, his change of direction. He has all the skills, the talent, the length. And you see why Al Harris went to bat for him and wanted them to draft him.
Yeah, it's great stuff. He was maybe my underrated press conference of the weekend. Like, he really took me by surprise, just kind of seeing him in person, getting to know him, his personality, very great smile, so grateful to be where he is. And speaking of grateful, guys, I think it's important we do talk about Shamar Turner, who maybe didn't pop off the field maybe the way some of us wanted him to, I think, this weekend. And we know he's, there are some question marks about, where he is in his health regarding the stress fracture, I believe, right, guys? So the one cool story of the weekend was, and the Bears social media team captured this beautifully, but they offered him a ride over to the far fields where they were practicing on the golf cart. He said, no, I'm going to walk. And we got to talk to him after practice. This was on Friday. And he said, I just wanted to take a few moments and soak it in, walking my first NFL practice. This is a dream job. It's a dream come true. I'm so grateful to be here. And I think hearing those words from anyone, you just sort of sit back and remember, man, we talked so much about this draft process and getting is he a good pick? Did they reach? Was it, did he fall to them? These are human beings who have worked their entire lives to get to where they are this weekend. And I just think it was one of those cool moments for me over the weekend where I'm like, man, this is awesome. This is just a cool moment to sort of sit back and reflect on these guys' journeys. They've all been so different. They've all worked so hard to get here. And Shamar Turner sort of brought us back down to earth for a minute and was like, all right, this was cool. But on the field, guys, what did you take away from getting to watch him a little bit in action?
I'll be honest, I took away nothing. I don't know what I'm looking at when I'm watching defensive tackle individual drills. And that's basically all they did, right? They don't have the pads on. They didn't do any team drills. We didn't see any 11 on 11. So no opportunity to do run fits or whatever, anything like that. So and the other thing you mentioned earlier, right? The running backs and the offensive line are right in front of us. The defensive tackles are on the other side of the world. So I would kind of look and be like, okay, yeah, they're over there. But kind of hard to glean what's going on the field. But DA gave us a little bit of insight as to how the Bears are going to use him right away, because we've talked a lot about the flexibility. He played defensive end at Texas A&M, and then he moved him in the middle when they got Nick Scorton transferred over, right? And DA basically said, we are going to work him in the middle to start. They're going to try him at 3 tech and at nose tech. But unlike Matty Eberflus and the Bears, where they had Kyler Gordon playing nickel and outside his rookie year, they want him to focus on the interior. They want him to focus on tackle, get those down before they put D end on his plate. And then Shamar Turner did give us a little insight on the weight, basically not supposed to top 300 pounds. So between 290 and 300 is kind of where they want him playing as he tries to really nail down DT and nose tackle.
Yeah, you said it, Alex. It was tough to really see a lot on field with the D tackles. You're going through individual drills. We saw him pop in the bag. It looks like he's got explosive hips. The one thing I did notice was he's probably got some work to do in his conditioning. I think in the press conference, it was Adam Hogue who asked the question, hey, where are you at in your conditioning? He's like, yeah, I could probably be in better shape. But a couple of times when I saw him, he was bent over, sucking down some water. So he could probably get in a little bit better shape. But I think maybe that comes back to his injury and not being able to train the way he wanted to. But press conference with this guy, you said it, Ruthie, big personality, guy's so grateful. He's excited for this opportunity, and just a guy that you pull for. You see a guy like him up there, how grateful he is to just have this opportunity, and the way he's just excited and super humble for this opportunity he's getting. That's a guy that you want on your team. He's going to do whatever you ask of him, and just a guy that you want to pull for.
No, it's great stuff. I think another one that stood out to me more so at the podium than maybe on the field was Ruben Hyppolite, the linebacker who has been the Bears have been, not Ruben Hippoly necessarily, but the Bears have been criticized for drafting him where they did. Obviously, this is a very, very fast athlete. And I think that's probably what the Bears saw in him and took him where they did in the draft. But, this is a guy who played at Maryland, who wasn't really projected to go in the first or second day of the draft, really. A lot of people said maybe he would even go undrafted. But the Bears saw something and they took him in the fourth round, pick 132. And so I think hearing Hyppolite's response to that criticism won everyone over. He has just an incredible mentality when it comes to hearing those words and basically saying, like, I'm the example of, hey, you don't have to get invited to the Senior Bowl. You don't have to get invited to the combine. You just have to work really hard, be a good person, and be really fast. Yeah. and maybe you can get drafted too. So I think this is someone else that I think we're all rooting for. He's competing for sort of that third linebacker role. Sounds like he's learning all three linebacker positions at this juncture, but that'll be, obviously there's Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards, who are probably light years ahead of where Ruben Hyppolite fits in. But I think this is someone we're all rooting for. Obviously, if he can make a role for himself on special teams, Clay, that's what we always talk about. Where do you see him fitting in, Clay?
Exactly what you said. I think he's going to work his way in there on special teams to start, be a core 4 guy. Core 4, you're on the kickoff team, you're on the kickoff return team, punt return team, and the punt team. So he could do all that and work your way into this competition. I think, excuse me, Alex, take over for a second.
Well, a little tickle in your throat from Alice all rookie minicamp. I get it. I've been there. Let's see. It is interesting where he could slot in. He feels like a future pick. TJ Edwards is obviously going to be here for a while. And I think where TJ Edwards ends up, and maybe Tremaine Edmonds' future, might determine what is up for Ruben Hyppolite. He's got the sideline-to-sideline speed that maybe suggests, hey, this guy could play Will. We know that TJ Edwards could play Mike. So we are definitely future casting here. But, this year it feels like his quickest path to the field is probably Sam, but he's not the only guy that's going to be competing for that job. Amen Agbangbamiga is still here. Sorry about that. Amen. Who is also a special teams, contributor in his own right. Noah Sewell is around. We have not seen a lot of Noah Sewell because he simply hasn't been healthy. If he's healthy in year 3 and can show some of the things that made him, I want to say he was also a top 150 pick or right around there a few years ago. So it's not like he's got this clear path to becoming the Sam. But the team is high on him. And Dennis Allen has made it clear multiple times he wants fast, athletic players. And that is Ruben Hyppolite. He fits that bill of what they're looking for, whether it's Sam in 2025 or Mike or Will in 2026, 2027, depending on how things turned out. I think a lot of that is still up in the air.
And the thing that you can really see about Ruben Hyppolite, and I think this is something that Dennis Allen has stressed over and over again, this guy's a pro. He's a professional. He's a guy that is all football 100% of the time. Dennis Allen says he's got everything in order in his life, everything in order in football, and those guys tend to have more success than the other guys. And that's something he said on multiple occasions. He's a true pro. You can hear it when he's talking. Like Ruthie said, he's a guy that holds that chip, didn't get invited to the combine, didn't get invited to the Senior Bowl. He still made it. And he took a bunch of visits. He took it as a business trip, and he impressed teams with just his mentality, his mindset, how he's a pro. He's open to playing all 3 linebackers positions. He's got the athleticism, like you said, to guard some running backs, to be able to guard a tight end, to be able to guard a slot receiver in certain personnel groupings if you get caught in that. So his versatility, how he's a pro, he's a smart player. I think all those things are going to help him in his competition to see maybe he could be that Sam. Obviously, we know you got the nickel and Kyler Gordon, but there are 15 plays a game that you're going to have a Sam linebacker on the field.
Something that really stood out to me about him, guys, too, just sort of came to me as you were talking. I guess it was sort of almost his humility and the head on his shoulders when he was talking. He didn't come in being like, I should have been drafted higher. I don't know why people are saying this about me. He was more like, I have things to work on. Like, I'm coming in here grateful for the opportunity, like really excited to be here. And I'm so grateful to the Bears for like trusting me and taking a risk on me. Like, I think that's maybe what was so striking, because it's a little opposite from the Luther Burden, take of saying, I should have gone in the first round. I'm going to make everyone pay. Like, this is someone on the other end of the spectrum saying, listen, I'm just grateful to be here. I know I have a lot to improve on, and I'm going to make the most of this opportunity.
But still confident, still confident.
Absolutely.
In himself,
Absolutely.
And like knows that he's like, yeah, I've got work to do, but I'll do the work,
Yeah.
So I think that's important. And then the other thing, his new teammates actually spoke very highly of him. Luke Newman played against him against Michigan State, basically said, yeah, that was my first game as a Big Ten player because he transferred over from Holy Cross. Said scouting report was that defense is good in the middle, and Ruben Hyppolite was right at the forefront as the leader of that linebacking core. Like, that was a guy we focused on. Kyle Monangai played Maryland every year at Rutgers, and he's like, yeah, I know Ruben, and Ruben knows me. We met in the hole a lot. He's like, I forget what he said, but basically like, what do you know about Ruben? He's like, hey, all I know is he was always around me. If you turn on the tape, I'm sure you would see the two of us colliding a ton. And he's like, I hope I won more often than not. But, these are guys that competitors against this man on the field, despite what you hear the narrative. These are guys who played against him, said, yeah, we respected him as a top competitor when we lined up against him.
You brought up Kyle Monangai. Let's get to him. I mean, bury the lead here, but this is someone I think that deserves a little bit of our attention. Clay?
Yeah, Monangai, obviously coming in, 7th round pick, ton of production at Rutgers. And with the way the running back room is set up, if this guy can play, there's going to be a spot there that he's got an opportunity to get some snaps. And obviously, you won't get to see much from running backs, not even in training camp. You'll get to see some, but you don't get to see everything you want until you get to the preseason games. Can this guy break tackles? How's he hit the hole? How's he reading things out? But what we did see from Kyle Monangai, what I saw in bag drills, in routes versus air and 7-on-7, this guy's quick. He's got good feet. He's quick. He can change direction. He's a low to the ground type guy. You're not going to be able to really push him off his spot that easily. He can catch the football. He had a drop or two in individual drills, got right back up, got in line, and ended up catching the ball. But he's got soft hands. He's a guy that can catch the football. I was looking at his numbers and what he's done. He doesn't have a ton of catches in his career. But look at the way he catches the football. Once again, natural hands catcher, a guy that can catch the ball with his hands. And running backs, a lot of times, you can see right away, this guy is not comfortable catching the football. I've seen it throughout my career. I don't know how many times. Like they got boxing gloves on instead of the actual gloves, the sticky gloves. And he's got gloves on. He's got some hands. This guy can catch the football. So you can use him in a couple different scenarios, but he's quick. He can change direction, low to the ground, solid hands. So I think obviously you got to keep building this profile on him once you get the pads on. But I liked what I saw from him as well.
I'll underline the pass catching. That was the big question, right? You see it a little bit in the highlights, and you're like, hey, why didn't they do this more? And he essentially said, yeah, I'm looking forward to showing the coaches that I can do this too. I don't know why I didn't do this more in Rutgers because I think I'm a pretty good pass catcher. And it was noticeable. And another guy who was asked about, hey, you're a 7th round pick, but you were this incredible running back at Rutgers who put up great numbers. And he's like, I don't know why I fell. I can't explain these things. When they ask, hey, what's the one thing about your game that caused you to fall? I don't know. And I kind of love that he's not like, oh yeah, this is a deficiency and I'm aware. He's like, listen, I don't know. I fell on the 7th round. And similar to Luther Burden said, this is just going to be something that I carry with me through my career. I will use this as a chip on my shoulder. I will use this to fuel me. I will use this to motivate me. So it's kind of a theme with a bunch of these dudes. Luther Burden, Ruben Hyppolite, Kyle Monangai, these guys who feel like that they've got something to prove that are going to use it to motivate them. It can be something that's a distraction that can subtract, that can derail a guy, or it can be something that fuels a guy and takes him to the next level. So we'll see which way it goes. But for him, another guy who's like, yeah, I got something to prove. I don't know why I was a 7th round pick. Probably could have gone higher. And the pass catching is very intriguing.
I love it, guys. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on while we were kind of recapping minicamp? I guess, there's some things that next week will be really interesting to get to watch OTAs and see the vets and the rookies sort of all come together. I think that's obviously a cool time. What we didn't talk about the last 40 minutes is Colston Loveland, who, right, who's not practicing, right, which stinks. I think everyone really wanted to see him out there, but you can tell he's, itching to get back on the field. Looks like he is on track with his rehab after having shoulder surgery, and is someone who's trying to get all the mental reps he can, which in so many ways is so important. My favorite thing about the weekend, guys, is he had his helmet on all weekend. I mean, he was doing everything he possibly could except getting real reps. But to see a guy who wasn't practicing with his helmet on, standing on the sideline was pretty cool.
I have no idea. I wish I had asked or thought to ask. Is there any chance he had the helmet on to get the play so he could hear the communication? Is there any chance of that?
He had his helmet on. I mean, Alex, he had his helmet on
constantly.
individual.
He really did.
I don't think there's communication for a tight
end. Just the quarterback, unless they gave something to him.
Right, unless they gave him like a
but in training camp, mini camps, you won't have the communication like that through the helmet unless you're going through your game time situations. But like you said, Ruthie, guy out there with his helmet on, his jersey on, you see him doing pass sets on the side. You see him doing, it's punt team, it's punt drill. He's doing punt sets. Me and Alex look at each other like, Colston, I appreciate it, man. I love that you're doing these, but you're not going to be on the punt team. You're the 10th overall pick. There is 0% chance they're going to put you on the punt team, but he's on the side. He's doing his punt sets, making sure he's got his post hand up, doing his kick slide and getting that down. So love the way that he's taking this and running with it and doing everything his teammates are. He really wants to prove himself, and obviously another good press conference too. You get to see how hungry he is to be such a good player.
Real quickly, I want to end this. You guys make anything of the kicker that they brought in?
0. They needed somebody to kick a rookie minicamp.
Yeah.
Okay, there it is. Just think it's interesting. You never know. That is going to have to wrap us up here, guys. Clay and I got to get into the studio to do the Big Pro Football Show, which we have shows Monday, Thursday, Friday this week. So we'll have a big schedule recap show on Thursday. We'll do a pod on Thursday morning that we'll get out for you ASAP. But by Wednesday, we may already have put a lot of these pieces together because they're kind of dropping clues all week as to some of these big national games and all that. So it'll be a fun, exciting week. That's the big story this week is the schedule release. So CHSN has you covered. All right, great stuff. Alex, Clay, thank you so much for listening to the Charter Podcast brought to you by St. Xavier University. We will see you all later this week.